Good morning. Welcome to the Community Safety Advisory Subcommittee of the Tenant Services Committee of Toronto Community Housing. I'm chair of this committee, City Councillor Paula Fletcher, and I'm joined by the other committee members, Uba Farah, there is Marcel Charlevoix, and Debbie Douglas. We have a quorum for the committee. We've just finished an in-camera session, and we're moving into our public session. I will note today that this is our first meeting, hybrid meeting at Toronto City Hall, which is where these meetings will take place from now on for Toronto Community Housing. So we're just getting used to our setup. Thank you for your patience. I will begin the meeting by acknowledging that the land that we're meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse nations, Inuit and Métis peoples. Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. I also want to acknowledge today as International Women's Day and wish peace and equality, bread and roses to all the women in Toronto and Toronto Community Housing, Toronto City Hall, City of Toronto, country of Canada, and the world in our fight for equality. And I also want to note that it's just very close on 3 years that City Hall was closed down for the pandemic. Here we are 3 years later, and thinking about all those people who lost their lives to the pandemic, have been affected in negative medical ways, continue to be, and just the impact that it had on our health physically and mentally, and will continue to have that impact mentally for a number of years. So just acknowledging those 3 years. Today, on today's session, we have a report, the Violence Reduction Program update for the third and fourth quarters. There are also some reports recommending the approval of the committee, which includes the the Safety Advisory Committee work plan, public, thank you, and for the annual review of our committee and our charter. We will be going to have some deputants today on item 6 and item 7 that have to do with the work plan and the charter. And there may be more, but right now we have 2 deputants on these 2 issues. So what I'd just like to know first, if any of members of the subcommittee have a conflict of interest on any items that are on today's agenda. Hearing none, we'll simply proceed. Thank you. So now we're just going to approve the public meeting agenda, done the conflict of interest. We'll look at the minutes and see if you have anything from there. There may be business arising out of the minutes. We have the 2 subcommittee works, which are held because we have a deputants for them. And then we have the VRP, violence reduction, with a 15-minute presentation, and that's held for the presentation. So what I'm just going to ask for is a confirmation of the public meeting minutes from the meeting on September 12th. Debbie Douglas moving those. All in favor? Marcel, Uba, Paula, thank you. Those are moved. Business arising. Is there any business arising that you want to note coming out of the minutes of the meeting? If not, I'll just ask for a motion to receive that. Uba? Moved by Uba, received by the committee. All in favor? Thank you very much. The next 3 items are ones that are held, and it is the it's the Community Safety Advisory Subcommittee work plan, and we do have a deputant here, and that is Catherine Wilkinson. I don't know if Catherine is on. She's on? She's ready to roll? Very good. Thank you. I don't see her. Am I going to see her? Or what's the situation? Or just hear her?
She's on the WebEx.
She's on the, she's on the WebEx. Not on the screen, though.
You should be able to see her
Yeah, for some reason Uber has been spotlighted.
Uba is now taking the place of the deputant. We can only see you. It's okay.
You look beautiful, Uber,
Yes,
as usual.
as usual. There we go. And now the beautiful Catherine. Very good. Thank you. Thanks for joining us today. You have 5 minutes. I have no idea if you can see the clock, but I'm watching. Okay. Thanks so much. Please start. Welcome.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Fletcher. I too wanted to wish you all a happy International Women's Day, with the theme being embrace equity. I just wanted to say that I think Toronto Community Housing, as a corporation, does a really good job of that. We see women through all various levels of management in the corporation. So with regards to the work plan, the Community Safety Advisory Committee regularly receives updates, getting some feedback, I don't know why, on the violence reduction program. There is no mention of the Neptune 4 review or the Community Safety Unit review, which is part of the Toronto policing reform. And while CCTV cameras are in the CSAC charter and fall under the purview of this committee, there is no mention of CCTV cameras in the work plan at all. So we recently learned the CCTV report was presented to BIFAC that the Tenant Services Committee and this Community Safety Advisory Committee were not aware of, and nor were the tenants aware of the change in service at the local level. The critical tenant lens must be applied to items being presented at other committees and should be shared with the Tenant Services Committee or Community Safety Advisory Committee as appropriate when they impact our tenants. And I may end up sounding like a broken record, but that's my overarching goal, to ensure that tenants are aware of operational changes which affect them. The work plan does not mention a community safety unit update. There was an annual report to Toronto Police Services through the Tenant Services Committee, but nothing from the community safety unit as a general report to this committee. So 2 additional important safety issues for work plan consideration. The first one is lobby intercom systems. Many of the intercom systems in our buildings do not work. This leads to people propping open front doors, jamming a coin in the locking mechanism to permit unrestricted access to the building. If the intercom doesn't work, the tenant cannot be notified of a delivery and it may be returned. So the second item would be lobby cameras. And I've mentioned this previously, that cable subscribers who switch to wireless services no longer have access to lobby cameras in our communities. And eventually, all tenants who subscribe to cable will be required to switch to this wireless service by law. So Toronto Community Housing does not have a choice, nor do the tenants. And what this means that all tenants living in Toronto Community Housing buildings will no longer have lobby camera access. And this is a really important safety feature for tenants, particularly those fleeing an abusive relationship, seniors, tenants living in some of these high-risk communities, tenants with visiting caregivers who come throughout the day, and some visit in the evening to help them get ready for bed. It is important for tenants to see exactly who they are permitting building access to. Many delivery services automatically leave parcels in the lobby of buildings. Without access to the lobby camera, a tenant cannot see if their parcel has arrived or disappeared. Toronto Community Housing is not responsible for lost or stolen articles left in common areas, nor the lobby, so the tenants must be vigilant to ensure that they grab their package before it disappears. So Bell and Rogers wireless services are digital. CCTV cameras are also digital. The stars have aligned. It would be relatively straightforward for cable providers to dedicate a channel to permit access to lobby cameras as part of our service agreement. It is important that we have this conversation with our service providers now to explore restoring this important tenant service before it is lost to all tenants. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have questions for Ms. Wilkinson on this? Debbie?
Thank you, Catherine. I think that you put forward some very reasonable requests. I guess my question is really for management about how doable is it to have the cable service providers make work with the digital people. I'm a techno peasant, Catherine, so excuse me, I have no idea how these things work. Are those things doable? Is it fairly easy? I'm not even sure who I should.
So through the chair, I wish I could answer that, but I can't. But what I will do is commit to bringing information back. There was a discussion at the last TSC around the CCTV cameras and a bit of a process. I believe it's an action item at that committee that we're bringing back information from management, and we can include some of the comments made today. I would see clarity in terms of whether this is a CSAC item or a TSC item, and I will look to Dara and the committee to advise on that. But we are working on a report, at least a business note to respond to some of the questions and comments that were made in the last TSC.
Thank you. My sense that it belongs to TSC, but I may be wrong.
I think I don't think Alan Mills is here. Anybody's here that deals with buildings. But the lobby cameras in the buildings. Can I just ask you, Dara, that Ms. Wilkinson mentioned that a few of the things that were in our original charter, which were the review of CSU and the Neptune 4, they don't show here. And is there a reason why they don't show here? Because they're not on the public work agenda any longer?
To respond, there are issues that fall within the charter of the committee addressed by the committee as part of its in-camera work plan. So the committee maintains both a public and an in-camera work plan for the work that it undertakes. Some of the matters that fall within the scope of the committee's work are such that conversations about those matters, given their nature, needs to take place in the in-camera session of a committee meeting, and that's why that may contribute to items not being presented as part of the public work plan for the committee.
So they're there, they're just not part of the work plan in public?
Yes, that's
Yes,
correct.
okay, thank you. And was I clear to hear that the lobby intercom systems and the lobby cameras are going to be brought back? The dedicated channel for the cameras are coming back, or would, yes?
So through the chair, the focus of the report that the team is working on currently is CCTV cameras, including access and some of the oversight, which was a discussion at TSC. I believe the intercom system is a slightly different request. And so again, if it's the will of the committee for us to bring back a report, we can do so either through TSC or through this committee.
I think it's better if we refer that to the TSC as a request to look into lobby safety, actually, is what it is, without any of that. So Debbie will move that motion at that time. And the motion, the CCTV camera motion, where there's changes, I'd also, since we know about that, request that that report be put on the TSC agenda for review. I don't know if you were planning doing that already, Dara.
We can certainly take that up with the committee chair, with Mr. Campbell.
Okay, yes, please. So that would be a recommendation from us, from this committee, to put that on there. And both of those issues that were raised by the deputy, and thank you for that. You're thinking safety in the lobby. And I'll just ask Mr. Britton how important it is to have lobby safety, that people can see who's coming in and out of the building.
Yes, Madam Chair, it definitely is important. We utilize third-party security in several of our buildings for that exact purpose, to ensure access control and lobby safety is at the highest level. So it definitely is something we take very seriously.
And I would just ask you, Ms. Gavea, that obviously this is something that perhaps we should be asking tenants about in some of the surveys and outreach, that how important is that to be able to see who you're letting in or who's in, or all those kinds of things from the lobby, because I think it's a really good point.
So through the chair to the chair, apologies for the confusion. I agree with you. I don't believe that it's currently a question that's asked on the tenant satisfaction survey, given the granularity of it, but I do think it's something that's of importance, and I can work with Paula Knight's team to look at adding more specific sub-questions under the safety category on the tenant satisfaction survey.
And if there's more meetings, just to find out if that's something that makes tenants feel more safe, I guess. Good, thank you very much. Anything on the actual report? We've asked questions about that. Michelle, Marcel, do you have any questions on the report or any statements? Uba? Questions, statements? Debbie? No? So Marcel, do you want to just move to receive this report, approve it? Thank you. All in favor? That's passed. The next is the annual review of Community Safety Advisory Subcommittee Charter. That's a lot of words, but it's a long title. All right. Well, first, deputant. We have an in-person deputant today. This is our first in-person deputant for TCHC for a long time. So, Ms. Yu, please come up. Sit here, right here at the front. No, over here. Thank you. And you'll see the clock. I'm going to put the clock on over here. Can I? No. I can't get the clock started. No, we're not plugged into our system somehow.
No, right? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Are you? Okay. I'll just put my watch on. So reminding you, you have 5 minutes, and Dara has the clock. Can you turn that around? So there we go. Now you can see that. So I'm going to be very firm with everybody today. 5 minutes. Thank you very much. And you're going to talk about the charter. Please
Can I
start.
start now?
Thank you. Yep, you can start.
Good morning, Madam Chair Fletcher and all committee members. My name is Jacqueline Yu. Thank you for the opportunity to share my comment on CSAC Charter. My first comment on tenant safety and support. Tenants are feeling more dangerous now than ever in our home and in our community. Our regional management operation use high-handed discrimination, bullying, encourage harassment to intimidate the weaker tenant, to control tenants, to show their absolute power over the tenant, to intimidate them. My second comment on cleanness on the common space, odd and barrels garbage all over the common space, all kind of food all over in the common space on weekend and long weekend. Our superintendent team is the hardworking team, but they only work from Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. We have no staff work on weekend and long weekend.
Sorry,
Very long
Jacqueline,
weekend.
I don't want to interrupt you, but I just think, not sure you're right on the topic here. This
Okay.
has got to do with what the charter, what we should be doing
Okay,
in our committee.
okay,
And it's on page 13 and 14 of the report.
okay. It is concerning the TSC use, okay, this in my view is necessary that the CSAC charter should retain the service of external advisor and integrity commissioner to investigate TCHC operation, policy and procedure. And I also think we need the open deputation. And then to like everything will be accountability and transparency. And I think CSAC charter should consider establish an open tenants deputation committee. Tenants have no channel to complain, and all the complaint go back to regional general manager now, and solution team close the complaint file by using false information at best. Terrible gain target,
Jacqueline,
consequence follow.
That's not
Okay,
about the
thank you.
charter.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
I just have to keep you. And I heard you
Okay.
say, ensure that our work on the charter adds accountability and transparency
Yes,
to all
yes.
of the operations.
Yes.
That would be your advice.
Okay, yeah, I welcome any question from all the members to verify anything what I said.
Thank you. I did hear that,
Yeah.
and I'll ask the staff about that. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity, everyone.
I will ask Ms. Wilkinson to please take her place as a deputant and just remind you that we are talking about the charter.
Ms. Wilkinson, can you hear us?
Yes?
Okay, we're ready for your deputation when you are.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. So I made reference earlier about the committee is dependent upon the completion of those 3 specific tasks. And I've now learned that them
I'm
are.
having some trouble hearing you, if you could. No, my microphone wasn't on. Yours was, okay. Yours was on. Thank you. Okay, could you start again, please? Thank you.
Okay, so I'm not going to lose my time, right? I know.
You're
how
not
this works.
losing time. Don't worry about that. We're just getting
Okay.
ourselves set up. Thank you.
All right. So, you know, as we know that this committee has 3 specific tasks. And one of those tasks is the development of the violence reduction program resources. And this is a regular agenda item. And I can see that, you know what, excellent progress is being made in these communities. And the primary focus for safety has been geared to improving outcomes in these high-risk communities. And the important work continues to stabilizing and integrating these communities with supports and services that they may not have otherwise been within their reach. And so, but other than a snapshot within the operations review, we are not talking about safety in general across the portfolio. And while the issues in all other communities may not be as severe as in high-risk communities, there is still safety issues that arise. And while these high-risk communities have dedicated community safety officers and
Excuse me a minute, Ms. Wilkinson, is she speaking to the charter?
Are you speaking to the charter?
What I'm hearing is you speaking to various issues in communities.
Okay, what I'm trying to say is in the charter, talking about serving high-risk communities, that we are not perhaps having a lens over other general safety issues. So my point is to find a way to make sure we're looking at the whole portfolio and not just high risk.
So
and that's within the charter of this committee to do that.
I'll ask, I will ask the Dara when you finish, because I think this committee's set up specifically to do certain things. So that's might be the difference, but would you like to finish?
Yeah, okay. And I just will actually draw to the attention that in the charter, this committee is responsible for security, CCTV cameras, and crime and reporting. So that's more general, not just high-risk communities. And that's why I'm coming here with this. So when we talk about, you know, how important it is to have those community patrols in those communities, the question is at what cost to the rest of the portfolio? You know, we've heard recently there's been a lot of staff turnover after, you know, heavily investing in recruiting staff, particularly for those high needs communities. And perhaps one way to improving the service in general across the portfolio would be to consider reinstating community patrols, but that may be under consideration.
I'm sorry, Ms. Wilkinson, this is not about the charter. So the charter mandate is very clear to establish a subcommittee of the Tenant Services Committee, itself a Toronto community of the Board of Directors, to assist the board and TSC in fulfilling its responsibilities in respect of community safety and security at TCHC. The earlier deputant asked us to include language around accountability and transparency. And I'm trying to get a sense of what it is that you're asking us to include that you think is missing from the mandate of the committee.
Okay, I'm happy to do that without all the blather. So who's talking to me? I have no idea who's talking to me.
Yeah, sorry, it's Debbie.
Oh, Debbie, I'm sorry, I didn't know who was talking to me. Okay, cut to the chase, I won't even look at my notes. I do feel this committee in the charter is responsible for community safety across the portfolio, not just in high-risk communities. And it may be that I'm actually aligning with the previous deputant that we're not having those important conversations about safety across the portfolio. And because they're never an agenda item, tenants can never come forward to address them. Thank you.
Thank you. That was helpful in clarifying that there seems to be a, what am I going to say? A little vacuum regarding some of these issues. But here under responsibilities, advice and recommendations to the TSC on the design, implementation, reporting of strategies, policies, initiatives on security, CCTV cameras, crime, and reporting. And advice and recommendations to the TSC on the design, implementation, reporting of policy, strategies, and initiatives on community safety in the community safety unit. And I'm not sure, that's very much broader than what's on page 14, Dara, which is the committee's terms will be informed by the completion of specific tasks falling within its responsibilities. Key tasks that must be concluded within the committee's term are the review of the CSU by the city, the Neptune 4, development of violence reduction program resources. So I'm not completely clear in my mind now how those two things are fitting together, because one does seem very specific and the other is a much broader safety mandate for the committee that.
I have to disagree. I think the way this is written is fine. I think it covers our work. It talks about giving advice to TSC on safety and of our various communities, including high-risk communities. But I don't think it's saying it's only high-risk communities.
No, I'm not saying that, but I don't think it's only high-risk communities. But there are issues that are safety issues that are being brought up by tenants regularly. And I think the point is, where does it get brought up? Here or at
TSC? At TSC.
And where's and what is, apparently there's a confusion that this committee is going to deal with safety in general. So I think.
And that's why I think it's important that we list our work plan, community safety review, the Neptune 4 review, development of the VRP and its various resources.
Yes, but under responsibilities, it's much broader.
So I think it's, if I can assist, I think it's always within the committee's mandate to identify issues related to safety in our communities that it can either address itself or forward to the Tenant Services Committee to be considered at that level, or the board. I believe that the charter gives the committee the authority that it requires to effectively deal with those matters. It cites some of the work that the committee performs in relation to those matters. But again, in the same way that the language in the work plan is that we talked about earlier is the backbone of the work, the language in the charter also, as Director Douglas points out in the mandate, is quite broad. In both describing fulfilling its responsibilities, the committee deals with issues around safety, and then under the specific responsibilities, providing advice and recommendations to TSC on the design and implementation and reporting of policy strategies and initiatives by management on community safety in the community safety and the community safety unit. It's a broad mandate. It's not limited to specific communities, and I don't believe that the approach that's being taken reflects that.
So I accept all of that, and I think we'll have to have an other business, another one that's other business, because an issue, let's say like safety matter, the lobby cameras on the regular agenda without this here, there would be no space for that. Can't come in and talk, right?
No, not necessarily. Things come up from time to time, and so while we have standing agenda items at any given meeting, we may have additional agenda items.
Yes. But That would have to be a request to deal with certain things that are coming up around safety then. I will have to figure it out, but it's
Yeah,
quite
and
much broader than I thought, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and my sense is it will come forward from staff, as it usually does, if there's an issue, or from the members of the committee for agenda items as they come up, regardless of where the source is.
I find that tenants many times want to tell us about things. We had a young woman sit here at Planning and Housing for 8 hours to tell us that she couldn't get satisfaction, right, Nadia, for when it rained and her wall was wet. She had to come and sit there for that.
Tenant
And
services.
so that's just hearing from tenants on issues, so that's why I'm thinking we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
But obviously, that's a place that can be discussed, and that's it. It's not, I was a little confused, but now I think I'm straightened out. But I don't want somebody sitting unable to give us information. If this is an information conduit, then we should say that rather than just 3 items. Do you know what I'm saying? We were to review 3 things. That was our committee mandate, I believe. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Any comments on that regarding our issues for the term and broader safety matters? Uba, Marcel, yeah.
So, thank you. Did I hear it right that we're going to be looking at maybe adding another section in the agenda for like safety concerns for tenants to bring forth?
That's just one option if we wanted to do that, but I can't figure out how that's fitting in the charter. That's my problem.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask Dara.
So I think that the committee wants to avoid a circumstance in which it extends beyond issues related to governance and oversight and into operational areas. If there are specific items that impact safety of TCHC communities that, as an oversight matter, the committee would want to hear either on the basis of staff recommendation or input that committee members receive from tenants, I would suggest that staff would be anxious to hear about those matters so that we can bring a report to the committee on those items for the purpose of getting the committee's input on the operational measures that management apply in responding to those items. Those could be addressed either through management or to the committee chair. And then once we've had an opportunity to review the matter, we can add it to the agenda for a further future meeting. I think the concern that the committee may have if there was a regular agenda item of tenant safety concerns is twofold. One, I think it could potentially overwhelm the agenda, and it would also, I think, draw the committee into issues that are appropriately operational, which really should be addressed by management. And if management isn't addressing those issues, I think that's where the committee's role in providing oversight on those issues comes in.
Marcel, any further up? Further questions?
This, I mean, if that'll work, that's fine, as long as we're not taking the ability, taking away the voice of tenants in the community, right? I think if we can find a healthy balance that way, I think would be probably best.
Thank you, Marcel. I just want to go to page 13, advice and recommendations to the Tenant Service Committee on the design, implementation, reporting of policy, strategies, initiatives by management on security, CCTV cameras, crime and reporting. So whether this gets referred, the question for me is, would this say advice and recommendations when it's referred to this committee, because CCTV cameras has now gone to a committee with no tenant oversight, as we've heard, which does concern me. And so how does that work? Who would refer those cameras here, since that's the job? Tenants, I'm just going to say tenants are not all going to BIFAC. We know that. Tenants go to the tenant services and the safety subcommittee, because that's where their focus is. So I'm just wondering on that mandate, and if we need to take it back and figure that out. I think the two are kind of separate. It's very clear. But on the other hand, how does that get initiated, the advice and recommendation, for us to give advice and hear advice?
So to address the question, I mean, I think part of the challenge is that the issues that we deal with as a corporation may from time to time overlap within the jurisdiction of multiple board committees. Ultimately, all of those matters can proceed to the board, and we've had circumstances in the past where one committee has referred a matter that it has now considered to another committee for consideration. That's one point I'd raise. I think the second point I'd raise is that our mandate as an organization and everything we do is to be tenant focused. And so I do think that even if a matter is being considered by the Building Investment Finance and Audit Committee because it's within the mandate of that committee, management dealing with the issue should apply tenant focus to the issue that they're dealing with. And while tenants may not choose to attend the Building Investment Finance and Audit Committee matter to address that item, we continue to offer them the opportunity to do that. I would suggest that the decisions that TCHC makes in relation to how it establishes its governance structure in establishing the charter for its committees should be informed by the board's interest in making sure that it's most effective in dealing with those matters. And while we offer the opportunity for tenants to depute at our various committees, the board process should be driven by what serves the board with the input from tenants who continue to have the opportunity to depute at all committees.
Thank you for that, Derek. But I'm going to note that we have tenant board directors, and I won't speak for you, but one of the things that I've heard over and over is ensuring that tenant voices on issues are there, and that it's not always management that says what the issues are on safety or anything else. And so how does that work at this committee? I'm not sure we're going to get to that today, but Marcel, did I put that right? That's what I thought I heard you say. Like, how do we make sure that, and where does that happen? Where's that moment for talking about those things?
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And this is one of the moments when we have tenant directors, their opinions are very important on matters like this. And so I'm not sure we can finalize this in this conversation today.
And what I can offer in that context is that it's important to keep in mind, I would suggest that it's important to keep in mind that this charter doesn't end at this committee. This charter recommendation and the reports before this committee are that the committee approve the charter and then refer it to both Tenant Service Committee and the board for their approval. So I think that the opportunity will exist through the approval process for the charter for this conversation to continue at both levels.
Okay.
Make sure that it's informed by the work that's done at all committee levels.
So I think if we just refer this up, I'm looking at you, Marcel. I wish you were here. I've not sat in the room with you ever, so I'm looking forward to that day. I've been with Ruben in a room, but not with you, so sometime soon. And we'll have that discussion because it's not clear where safety issues are crystallized that are coming up from tenants rather than coming down from staff. That's what I'm hearing. What's the role of the committee? And the way it's written to me, it's still, my intention is not to turn this committee into a safety committee about everything. But I think what we're highlighting is there may be a missing piece here around getting that safety feedback from tenants. And so we'll send this up with that acknowledgement and continue to have that at the Tenant Services Committee. Does that satisfy you, Marcel? Yes, it does? Okay. So we'll receive for information or approval, send it to Tenant Services with the proviso that we want to ensure that tenant experience is captured around safety in as many ways as possible. Okay. Thank you, Dara. Okay. And you're moving that? Supporting that? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. And then we're moving to our last item, which is item number 7. It's the Violence Reduction Program Update Q3, Q4 2022. Is that... Are you going up all together? No?
So through the chair, this will be a joint presentation from our acting director, senior director in the community safety unit, and a member of his team, Mona, who will also speak to the item, and Liqua's transition presentation as he's transitioning to a new role of general manager. This is his report as former acting director of programs and partnerships. This will transition to our Sama Berhane at the next CSAC meeting.
Thank you. And before we start, thank you very much, Liqua, for all of your work here. I just say that all of the tenants in the West District are very, and staff are exceedingly lucky to have you as the general manager. I want to acknowledge that here. And you're so full of all our safety issues. You're just going to be so good.
And get rid of me. I'm still around.
Please, go ahead.
Yes, good morning, Chair and members of the CSAC committee. My name is Al Britton. I'm the acting senior director for the community safety unit. Today, I'm very fortunate to be joined by Ms. Mona Bottoni, who's the acting senior manager of the community safety unit. Mona's been in the housing world for 26 years and a member of the community safety unit for 10. And she's been a manager for many of those years. And in September of 2021, she was elevated to the acting senior manager and is a strategic part of our team. So Mona does a lot of great work on the VRP. So I've asked her to come today and do the presentation on our behalf.
Good morning, Chair and committee members. So this, as you know, is a joint report that Liqua and CSU work on. So I'll just give a summary of the CSU portion of the VRP report. So this is an update on both Q3 and Q4. So I'm sure you all had a chance to look at the report, so I'll just summarize it. For the crimes against persons, in Q3 we saw a decrease of 50 incidents, which is 45% compared to the same time in 2021. This is primarily due to the decline in assaults and assaults with weapon. And a large portion, and we're talking 57%, there was a decrease in serious violent incidents. So that equates to 30 incidents. After the significant decline in Q3, the crimes against persons rose again in Q4 by 24 incidents. However, we are seeing an overall reduction in violent crimes in the VRP communities. This is primarily due to an increase in reported assaults with a weapon and criminal harassment. So as for crimes against property, they decreased slightly in Q3 compared to previous quarter by 15 incidents. In Q4, it went back up to previous levels by another 16 incidents. So the increase is primarily due to the higher number of reported theft from vehicles, mischiefs, and break-and enters. So in the attachment of the report, you see a further breakdown of data and statistics, and it's done by seniors and family to separate them. So in a previous report, we'd been asked to provide a breakdown of gun violence incidents by community for VRP. So CSU continues to work with the City of Toronto and Toronto Police to provide more accurate shooting data in order to report on gun violence by community. So the issues we're currently working through with this group is the occurrences may happen at or within close proximity to TCHC properties. So we want to make sure that we capture those correctly. And the occurrences may not exactly match the geocode on the TCHC address. So that's something else we're working through. So far, what we've done is we've begun reconciling the addresses with the City of Toronto into one repository, and we've identified spatial linkage of TCHC developments to the City of Toronto. So we now have automation of data processes and workflows. Our next steps are to finish reconciling all the addresses, and once we finalize all the reporting requirements, then we will fully automate workflows and data processes. Then we will test and evaluate the solution. So this is taking longer than we expected, unfortunately, but we want to make sure that we get it right. Once the next steps are completed, we will be able to report back to the committee with the accurate shooting data.
The Chair, thank you, Mona. And then my name is Lekwan Gala, formerly Acting Director Programs and Partnerships, now General Manager in West Region, and I will speak to the community development side of VRP, which comprises 8 community services coordinators, 3 in the West Region, 3 in the East Region, and 2 in Central. And we also have programming staff that are assigned to West and East, namely 4 PCs for each of those regions, with the number of SPLs depending on the need for programming that needs to be done. You will note from the data chart that is attached to the report that it is Q3 and Q4. Some things are moving as you would expect them to in terms of the number of young people that are being served in the summer months is much higher. It's interesting to note that the number of adults tends to be higher in Q4, speaking to what will be happening during those winter months and the kinds of services that people are requiring. Food security being a huge issue, it's an underlying cause in most of our VRP communities. And in those events and activities, the community service coordinators and CSU special constables who are VRP dedicated and safety advisors are working in collaboration for sort of regional seasonal events, giveaways and that kind of thing. You will note that the numbers in the West region are somewhat reduced compared to the other regions, even though they have a complement of staff that's meant to be higher. This is happening because of staff movement. There was a period of time when there were significant vacancies in the West, which have since been addressed. You'll also note that the report follows a format. We're looking at community engagement, youth engagement, and community partnerships. Those are the 3 pillars for the VRP in how they operate. Central region, when we first conceived the idea of VRP, the issues didn't seem to involve youth as much, so the Central region does not have a youth contingent, hence why they only have 2 CSCs who focus more on mental health and addictions, and then the regions in the East and West have a youth dedicated CSC for both of those. And we're open to take any questions.
Questions? Uba, Marcel, Debbie? Can I just have it confirmed that the VRP communities, are they the initial communities that we started off with for VRP?
Yes, they are.
So the categories that have been developed aren't part of the VRP, overlaid on the VRP. We haven't shifted anybody out.
So we haven't made the official shift. Where we are right now, we have looked at the empirical data from a CSU perspective for the categorization. So even with the initial categorization, that list will be shifting slightly, not a lot, and we will be making an effort working with our SEMA, Mona, and Al's team to classify some VRP communities as category 4 communities, at least on the community development side, because there is a path to being able to provide services with a dedicated centralized team that can be mobilized that way.
I did think, and I'm not going to do it today, but I did think that one of the things that would they be more aligned with the actual findings, particularly from the West side, that we found out that the VRP information wasn't correct when we started.
So through the chair, apologies, Chair. Through the chair, there is a commitment for us to look at realigning the resources. We haven't actually moved into the Q1 report for 2023. I think we're still in Q1 of 2023. And so the hope is that if we're not able to finalize that transition in Q1 of 2023, the focus will be Q2 of 2023. I know CSU has been working with the regional teams to look at an alternate model of service delivery specific to the Category 4 buildings, and I think we should be able to provide an update by the next CSAC. But again, these two reports are reflective of the end of 2022.
Okay, thank you. And I just have some questions on pages 18 and 19 vis-a-vis the East region goes from, I think it goes from Jones to Scarborough. Is that the East region? Sorry, East region is...
So the East region actually dips into Central. So some of your buildings, Councillor Fletcher, so it goes up to as far as, I want
Either
to...
Jones or Greenwood, all the way to the Pickering border.
Yes.
Okay, right? Is that
That's
East
correct.
region? Thank you. Is it Greenwood or Jones?
I think more Jones. I'm going to have to double
It's
check.
Jones. It's Jones, yeah. So that's a brand-new area that's added in. So when we just look at some of these things, I guess I'm interested in numbers. I'm a numbers person always. So the 700 tenants, was that in any particular community? How many tenants are in each region? Do we happen to know that? That's helpful.
Through the chair, I don't have the number off the top of my head, but when we did the final regional alignment, we tried to make it as equitable a size in terms of the number of tenants and communities. So it's relatively flat across the regions, but it fluctuates a little bit, I think. I can get the exact numbers to you.
Yeah, so when I'm looking at 700, I don't know if there's 900 tenants in the East region or there's how many thousand tenants in the East region. So just impact here. Where were the women's self-defense classes? How many came? How many youth went there? How many kids got referred? How many kids got jobs? Where was the parent book? I understand the Danzig one. I understand 20. When I go to the next side for the East region, that's Central region, sorry. Just basically, what was the touch of all these activities? How many people were impacted and touched? And I don't think you have that data right here, so.
Through the chair, point well noted. And also one further comment is the VRP section of the region is not the entire region. So this is something to note. It's particular building developments within the region. So it's not the
That's
entire
fine.
region.
So which particular, yeah, so there's particular buildings where that happened in the east, and it's still, if we're going to talk about how many people are in the VRP, how's our touch? When we're in Central, I've got this, how did holiday gifts get given out for meals and gifts for the tenants at Wellesley and Bleecker? That's on the CSU report, 600. Who paid for that? Where did those come from?
Yes, Madam Chair. All items that were provided to tenants were donations that were provided, and CSU and other support staff within Toronto Community Housing facilitated the delivery of it, but they were donations from corporations and members of the public.
So those come in through CSU, those come in through programming. Where do donations come in from? What's your report?
Through the chair, they come in through a variety of doors. Some were specific to CSU, some do come in through various program outlets.
So where did the tenant meals and gifts come in from? Where did the turkeys come from? Where'd the backpacks come from?
Yes, Madam Chair. The turkeys in particular, and there were some gift cards, were a direct donation from two donors in the corporate world, and they wanted to stay anonymous, but they signed the appropriate paperwork, and the all policies and procedures were followed properly to ensure.
No, but where did they come through? Were those corporate donors get in touch with the CSU? Did those corporate donors get in touch with the corporation?
Yes, in particular to the ones that we're mentioning, that was a direct contact to CSU. The corporate donors made the connection with CSU. The CSU, it was a community safety advisor, then dealt with the appropriate areas within Toronto Community.
Okay, so just being clear that donations would come in through CSU, corporate donor, for whatever reason would come to CSU. You don't go to the corporation and say, we have 50 turkeys, how would you like to do that? It's taken out by CSU officers, correct?
Madam Chair, in particular in the turkey situation, it was a very large donation, and there other areas of Toronto Community Housing were consulted immediately, and a very holistic plan was put together where we ensured we were going to the appropriate areas and balance it across the whole portfolio to make sure that the food was given to the people in need. Yes.
I know I've had 200 turkeys to deal with, frozen turkeys, but my question isn't about, it's who gives them out. And I think that's part of the question is, what is the role of the CSU? Is it to give out turkeys and backpacks, or is there somebody else that gives out turkeys and backpacks? It's everybody's job to collect things for tenants, but corporate policy, I'd like to understand that a little bit clearer, because it's different having CSU person going, is that the corporate policy or not? I don't have to answer it today, but it is my question. Some of these things.
So through the chair, I think we can bring that back in terms of the programs and partnerships and the work that we do with CSU and clarity on when a donation comes in and when it's distributed and how that's done.
Because it is a partnership when somebody makes a donation, and no matter who they make it to, whether they make it to, I don't know who else, Dara's office to give out, it is still a corporate donation through programs and partnerships, which I think have to be logged in a little different way than people doing it, divisions doing it independently. And then I'm interested in, well, in the West. I just have a few things here, and to me, VRP is, I don't know the numbers here either. So how impactful is this? What's going on? And this is only CSU, I understand, but when I put the two of them together, if we do East, West, and et cetera, eventually we may have just an overall safety plan. Yeah. There's just a lot by region, and some of it's different in the written than it is in the chart. So appreciate that coming in very much. It gives us a good starting place. And is this something we get? Yeah, we get the updates all the time. So as someone said, Q1 will look a little different than the Q2 and Q4. Okay. Anybody else have any comment, question? No? Marcel, yes?
Yeah, I do. And it's just about the community training that you do. When you're doing your training, do you like review the community safety training that you do every year, and are maybe looking at kind of expanding that kind of training for the community?
Through the chair, just trying to understand the question.
Okay.
The training that's there's a variety of training provided to community.
Sorry,
Yeah,
do you want to explain that a little bit more, Marcel?
Yeah,
Please?
Okay, so you have like CPR, first aid, and self-defense training for the community, right? So do you, is it possible to look at expanding that a little bit? Like, just like for instance here, like these smartphones, they all have SOS features in it. So if you start one 3 times, it'll send out text messages to people. It also activates your GPS and gives you a 15-second video. Things like that, just to enhance safety for, women, like if they're walking around at night, anybody.
Through the chair, we can take that back to the teams that are providing the training and just work with the communities around expanding, and we can bring that as a follow-up update in the next report.
Yeah, just something to look at. Thank you.
So you're asking to add digital on there, all digital options, Marcel, is that right?
Yeah, just looking at different ways of keeping people safe out there, right?
Good. Debbie?
No, I was just saying, I think Marcel was using the phone as an example of a training that didn't happen.
Sorry, I was being too specific. I hear you. My bad. Debbie clarified that. Good. Okay. Thank you for that. Aliko, you heard that as far as looking at augmenting the training and spreading it further and deeper, right? Good. Thank you. Anything else on this item? Or we will have a motion to receive it. Uba, Marcel, moving to receive. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. I do have one piece of new business. Oh, that's fine. Yes, you can leave those hot seats if you'd like. That's fine. Thank you very much, everybody, for your reporting today. Thank you for being at the meeting. It was very good. But I do have one piece of business to conduct today, especially because it is International Women's Day. And we have a very important woman here who has contributed so much to the city. And this is her own copy of herself in a beautiful Black History Month poster that was done by TCHC. So, Debbie Douglas.
Thank you all so much. This is wonderful. This is my first time seeing it. This is great.
You don't look any different than the picture.
Thank God. Thank you so much. Truly appreciate it.
Should we get a picture of you with that? Well, you could do it here. Do it at the front, Debbie.
I'm going to get out of here.
We'll just hold it up here.
Just hold there.
Yeah. Well, not here, when I hold it up. Over here.
See, you knew about this picture. I wish I knew I would get dressed up.
You look great.
1, 2, 3, and again, 1, 2, 3. Excellent. Got a couple.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you very
Maybe
much.
you can circulate those to the board, Nadia. I think everybody would like to see that.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that great? And thank you to every staff for thinking of that and getting that pulled together for Debbie. Okay, that was the last piece of business. I will accept a motion to terminate. An Alfred Schwarzenegger motion made by
Marcel is waving.
Marcel. Okay, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much, everybody, and thank you to everybody.
Thank you all for this wonderful gift.